A question that comes up sometimes from my family and friends is, how is it actually to work, for example, with Germans? Or how is it to work in Singapore with Singaporeans? Is it different? Like, how are they? How are their personalities or their character or their way of working? So far in my life, I've worked in Germany, in Indonesia, specifically in Jakarta, in Singapore, and recently also in Canada. Although I was only working in these 4 countries, actually my scope of working with different cultures is far larger, and the reason is that in most of my positions I've been in a project management role and I've worked remotely a lot, which meant that I didn't only work with people who were actually from that country. So when I was working at SAP at the project management office as project support, I was not only working with Germans, but the team was international. So I was working with people from China, from India and other parts of Asia, Germans, and also people from other countries in Europe. The same thing when I was working in banking in Jakarta and Singapore. I was not only working with Singaporeans and Indonesians, but I also was working with people from Hong Kong, from India, and the UK. And I can't deny that there are in fact differences when working with people from different countries. But these differences are not as huge as people might think. I can think of 3 major things that I observed to be different between cultures when working. The first thing is the way that different cultures view time. So for example, in Germany or in Canada, if you have a meeting or an appointment at 2 p.m., then the other person will actually expect you to show up at 2 p.m. and not 2:15 or 2:30. But there will always be cases where that is different, where that's not the case, and even Asian cultures, they differ very largely. But at least from my experience in Indonesia, if you have a meeting with someone, for example, at 2 p.m. and the person shows up at 2:10 or 2:15, that is still very acceptable. And even among friends, if you meet up with friends and let's say that you plan to meet up at 2 p.m., it is really possible that a lot of people only show up at 2:30 or even 3 p.m. It's not uncommon for people to show up after 1.5 hours. Of course, in that case, an apology would be due, but usually the other party would understand if you give them a good reason. And again, these are just tendencies. In reality, it will, of course, differ depending on the particular person you're dealing with. By the way, if you're liking this video so far, then make sure that you give it a thumbs up. That would really mean a lot to me. And the other 2 things that I observed that really stand out is the level to which a person really sticks and follows a process, and also respect for authority. In most Southeast Asian cultures, and I think this is the case for Asians in general, the level of respect for authority is extremely high. Usually, subordinates will show a lot of respect and deference towards their superior. In Indonesia, for example, if people don't agree with their boss, they might still voice their opinion, but they will do it in a rather, I would say, submissive way. They would not try to force their point. They would be really careful about it and say it in a very extremely polite way. Whereas in Germany, what I observed is that people are pretty straightforward and straight to the point. So even though they're dealing with their boss, but if they don't agree on something, then they will actually say it. They will just state it as a matter of fact and not beat around the bush. And again, all of these are tendencies and it will not apply in every case. So even in Asia, the working culture will also strongly depend on the kind of company you're working in. If you're working for a multinational corporation, then the employees will also kind of adapt to the culture of the overall corporation. So not only their local country culture, the Indonesian culture, for example, but also the culture of the overall company. So in a way, the culture that they will adopt and in the end will be more westernized. So that was a bit about the differences that I experienced and that I observed. And now I want to talk about the similarities. And I think that this part is where it gets really interesting and it can be really eye-opening eye-opening for some people. What I observed and experienced from working with people from Germany, the UK, Hong Kong, Canada, Singapore, China, India, and so on is that people are really not that different. Of course, everyone is different, but what I mean here is that the biggest difference of working with people actually lies in their personality. I would say that in general, in every country, in every culture, you will find people of different personalities, and that is what I think ultimately differentiates different people and colleagues that you're working with. There are 4 things related to personality that I want to talk about, and here I don't want to talk about personality theories such as the Big 5, etc., that talk about introversion, extroversion, agreeableness, etc. That's a highly interesting topic, but perhaps I'll touch on that subject in another video. So here I want to talk about personality in a more practical way. The first thing is about helpfulness. I think that there is a kind of a stereotype about Asians or people in Southeast Asia that they are extremely helpful and friendly. And of course, many of them truly are. But from my experience of working in different countries, I can't say that in particular, for example, in Indonesia, the people are more helpful than in other countries. No matter where I lived or worked, I've always managed to encounter people who are extremely friendly and helpful, as well as people who are extremely unhelpful on the other end. For example, Germany. I think that there are a lot of people who haven't been to Germany or don't have German friends who have a very skewed perception of what Germans are like. During my time working and studying in Germany, I found a lot of really genuine German people who were really helpful. And by helpful, I mean that they really go out of their way to help you. Of course, not all, but there are people like this. I talked about this in my other video about 16 things I loved about studying in Germany, where my German neighbors helped me to move house. So they actually helped me to pack everything into their own car, drive me over, and then carry everything up to the 4th floor with no elevator. And this is not a one-time thing. There are a lot of other German friends who really helped me out a lot. Another thing is efficiency. In Germany, in Singapore, in Canada, and also in Indonesia, I found people, I worked with people who were highly efficient, and also people who were really inefficient and unproductive. Of course, the way that people would go about it to work on a certain thing would be different in different cultures. Some would stick more to the process, while others would do it more freestyle or like not really stick to the rules and to the process. But in the end, in general, I found that everywhere there are people who are highly efficient and really fast at doing a good and high quality job, whereas there are other people who are taking ages to even complete one simple thing. The other thing is dedication and reliability. I also found that this is a personality trait that exists across the board in every culture, every nationality, every country that I worked and lived in. So in Indonesia as well as in Germany, I came across people who are highly committed and dedicated, and who you can really rely on to get something done. And in both countries, I met those kind of people who really don't care about other people and don't care about their work, and they just want to have a good time and are not responsible at all. So what I want to get across here in this video is that I think that personalities are distributed quite evenly across different cultures. I don't have a study or research to prove this, but this is just based on my personal experience. Of course, the way the things are done in different cultures and countries, as I mentioned before, like the level to which they respect authority or they stick to rules and processes, and how they view time can be really different. What I found in terms of personality is that you will find every kind of personality type in any kind of culture. Have you come across that really unfriendly, unhelpful, and grumpy kind of person? Surprise, surprise, you will find that kind of person in any country and culture. I've encountered that kind of person in Singapore, in Indonesia, and in Canada, as well as in Germany. It's only the very outer shell of the person, the skin color, the language they talk, how they dress, how they look like, that is different. But the inside, the personality, you will find that pretty much everywhere. And the same goes for that kind of person, and I'm pretty sure that you know one of these people who are extremely kind and patient and helpful, like almost angel or saint-like. And I've personally met this kind of type everywhere in the world. The biggest takeaway from these experiences for myself is that the biggest thing that differentiates people is actually not race and culture, but rather their personality. I'm really curious to know what you think about this, but I have a really strong sense about this. And the other big differentiator that I see is socioeconomic status. So when I was studying in Germany, I was encountering people, albeit from different cultures, but who were of a similar kind of socioeconomic background. So they were educated people, they were middle class, they cared about education, they cared about their career and getting forward in life. And this is something that really spans across cultures. I want to know what you think about this. So if you are someone who has experience working overseas or with people from different cultures, then let me know if you can also confirm this observation. And in case you haven't been that exposed yet and you haven't had the experience of working with people overseas or with people of different cultures, I really hope that you get the experience, because that will be really eye-opening to you. By the way, in case you're new to this channel, I make videos on career change and multiple careers. In case you're curious to know more about that, then you might want to check out my other video, which I link up here. One of the goals of my channel is that I want to help people like you to shape the kind of career that you really want and that is really suitable for your life, instead of just following the traditional career path. Of course, following the traditional career path is all good and great, but if you are someone who has a lot of interests and you want to pursue them in a professional setting, then multiple careers might be more suitable for you. I upload videos 2 times a week at the moment, and if you don't want to miss out on any of my upcoming videos, then you might want to hit the subscribe button now. And also, if you do, don't forget to hit the alarm bell, because if you don't hit the alarm bell, YouTube will not be notifying you of my new videos. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it was useful to you in some way. As always, I thank you so much for watching, especially to those of you who stuck with me to the very end. Have an awesome day, all the best for your career, and I hope to see you again soon.